Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Find this thing. Looks right. A couple things I'm going to discuss today that are on the agenda. I'm going to sort of reverse the order. I'm going to go ahead and do the real estate report first, and then I'm going to follow up with Commissioner Cox's request a couple months ago to sort of go through the process of how we select land for acquisition. So we'll start as usual on the west side of the state on the real estate report. We've got a lot of stuff pending out there. Most of this is wetland fund acquisition. A lot of these tracts are rather small, but we're getting a fair amount of them closing in the last month or two, and we expect to get a lot of these done. The biggest of these is this Heartwood tract that's up in Lake County, or I guess it's actually straddles Lake in Dyer County. That one's been on there for months and months, and we're trying to wrap that up. The Conservation Fund is helping us with finance for that. And move on to Region 2. There's not a lot of activity in Region 2 at this time. We got one tract closed in Hickman County at what's an area known as Happy Hollow on the Duck River. This is the smaller tract that's right on the river. We also got a 1,500 acre transfer of land from the Department of Corrections a few months ago. So we've got quite a pretty good site over there now, 1,800 acres or so that's open for hunting. We've got a few more in Region 3. We've got several of these are being negotiated through third parties. This Cunningham tract, this big one, is almost 4,000 acres. We've been working on for a while. It's in one of the wetland fund exception areas where we can use wetland funds to buy upland property. We just haven't, the family has got some tax issues that they're trying to work through, but eventually we hope to get that tract. The others are rather small, and the one that's closed up there is Skinner Mountain, which I think I've reported on before. That's a really big tract too. That was about 4,000 acres. Region 4, several out there, some small ones, the Turtle Bog tract in I think it's in Carter County, Johnston County. Very small, 3 acres. It's an area that is used by bog turtles for reproduction, for making their nests. That's been secured and closed. There's a few other smaller tracts up in the North Cumberlands. There's another big tract that's being transferred to us for virtually nothing. It's called the Topoco lands down in Monroe, and I'm pretty sure most of it's in Monroe County. 3,600 acres, and that's along the Chilhowie and Calderwood lakes. We're also working with TNC on another tract called Turkey Pen that we've talked about. Chris went through quite a bit of discussion last legislative session to get that added into the wetland fund where we could buy that tract. It looked pretty shaky for a couple of months, like nothing was going to happen there, but it's changed. The sellers have become more willing in the last few months. So it fits right into these Topoco lands. So that'll be a total of about 7,000 acres that we'll get over in that area, and that's right in the heart of bear country. Really big acquisition we feel really good about. And the other one that's kind of new up there is in Greene County, the Brown estate. This is a fellow that we're getting a life estate from for bargain basement price, 292 acres. It's on the Nolichucky River. So before I move into the presentation, do you all have any questions on this, on any of these? Okay. Oops, wrong one. All right. A couple of months ago, we were requested to do this this acquisition process, which is really pretty simple, and this is really the summary slide for the whole thing. Generally, when a tract, we don't go out looking for tracts, or at least since I've been in the real estate division, we haven't really gone out to search for tracts. We might have discussions about tracts that have been looked for in the past and that might be available now, but for the most part, people are coming to us with tracts that they want to sell to the state for a variety of reasons, and they usually either go to their regional staff or they call me or Roger Jackson, who works in my division, and contact us that way. Sometimes they'll contact the directors, but so we sort of confer with each other is really how this process goes. Now, some of them are upland tracts, and then we have to talk about funding, how we might fund those with federal aid, and others are wetland fund tracts, and if we deem them desirable enough, they make our priority list, which I've tried to show you in slides in the past, and it hasn't worked out too well. It's just too wide of a list to really put up there, but we sort of begin with a discussion with the directors about whether or not this is something that we want to pursue. If they say, yeah, I think it might be a good thing to put on the list, then we take it in. Let me go through some of these. I go sort of box by box on this. So there's a consultation generally. Lorenda, who works for me, Hooper, she does GIS maps that look like this that you've seen at various times. We look at where things fall in relative to the locations on our wildlife management areas, and usually somebody from the region or from our office or both winds up visiting the site and getting an on-the-ground look at it. A lot of times we're familiar with exactly where it's at before sometimes we don't even need to go look at it. We know where it's at, and we've been looking at it, particularly if it's adjacent to lands that we already have. When we get with the directors, I usually, before I go in and talk with them, I pull up the plans that we have. The West Tennessee Land Acquisition Plan. Some of these are older, but the main one that sort of summarizes everything for the whole state is this Tennessee Heritage Conservation Trust Act book that we worked on several years ago that identified the tracts that were of interest to the state. A lot of them are TWRA tracts or tracts that TWRA is interested in. Some of them are Division of Forestry. Some of them are TDEC interest areas. And so those are mapped out, and we know where they are, and those are based on large part in special areas where there's a lot of species diversity, or as areas that have been identified as good hunting areas. Sometimes they're places where we used to have a hunting area, public hunting area that was leased or under license that was timber company land, and it's no longer timber company land, or we're no longer leasing it for whatever reason, so it's of interest to us to get that land back in some shape or form or manner or means, I guess, so that we could hunt it again. But this fit into these statewide land plans is pretty critical for us. This is that crazy list that doesn't usually work out because you can't see it when you put it up on a screen. But this is my land acquisition priority list. It's not. I only prioritize the wetland tracts on it. Those are the ones that we have to prioritize by law. Things move around on this list. Sometimes a new tract will come in that's just kind of a gotta have it kind of thing, and it'll move a little higher up the priority list and maybe bump some things back. But generally I work off this list and we decide where things will go into it. We have a sort of general conference amongst ourselves sort of informally, and then ultimately we take them into the staff meeting. So director staff gets to weigh in on where these things are, no matter where they are located in the state, and the prioritization is sort of worked out that way. And then from that priority list, we look at where our funding is, and that's how they get to, if we've got the money for it, we submit it to the State Building Commission. So that is sort of a two-step process. I submit it to the State Building Commission. They ask for some information on it. There's a staff subcommittee that reviews these things before it goes to the actual SBC executive subcommittee, and ultimately, since I've been here, all of our tracks that we've submitted have been accepted. There is one other little thing we have to do. It's up that top bullet. With wetland tracks, we have to have sign off by the Commissioner of Agriculture as well. That's in the Wetland Act, and so we always do that. We don't necessarily, well, we don't have to do that for upland tracks that have nothing, that aren't funded under the Wetland Fund.
May I ask why, Ed, do you know, Director Carter, why do we have to do that? Why was that put in that legislation originally? Do you know? Or Tim, do you have any idea?
What exactly?
Why would Commissioner of Ag have to sign off on a wetland track?
The Commissioner of Agriculture shares in the Wetlands Fund, and there's a part of it that goes to kind of ag enhancement and some of the funding that they get. They also had a concern that they didn't want the state to overtake areas that they considered prime agricultural lands. I guess the last part was that the Farm Bureau has a real interest in what is put into any kind of public ownership. So that was my understanding of how the Commissioner of Agriculture became a part of that. I'm also a sign-off sheet on myself and the Commissioner of Conservation, or TDEC, have to sign off on those things that go for the Heritage Trust Fund purchases. So there's kind of I think just a way of making sure that all three departments know what's going on at any one time, and if you have an objection, it's a time to raise it. They could essentially block the sale if there was enough concern, or if they wouldn't sign off on it. And I don't know, Boyd, if you might want to comment on that as well. But
Well, once we get something approved by the SBC, the Department of General Services sort of takes over the transaction. They have contracts for appraisers and people that come in and do phase one environmental surveys and for surveyors. So, you know, once it gets through, it just sort of follows that process, and it's kind of in that order, except for, I guess, environmental surveys and purchase options are reversed. But after the appraisal's done, an option goes out to the seller if we think we want to make an offer on it after that, and we usually do, and then the other things fall in after that. And the whole process from start to finish to get all that done, because of the bidding that has to go on, takes about 6 to 9 months usually. So that's pretty much it.
Now, do we have a survey crew to go out and survey this, or do we contract that out?
Department of General Services contracts out for property usually. We have a survey crew, but they're pretty wrapped up in boat ramps and those kinds of things. So then they're under the Department or the Division of Engineering under Dwight.
More questions on commission?
I've got two. I've heard for years of complaints from some of the agency people about having some of these tiny tracts that we buy that's a public hunting area, and disputes between public using a small area and the private landowners. How much of a consideration in buying a small tract does that give it? I mean, are we buying tracts that are segregated and remote, or are we trying to buy tracts that I think used to Director Myers would put together a chessboard trying to put things together? Is that still what we try to do, Or we just go out here and buy 200 acres in the middle of nowhere because it's got turtles on it, and then we allow people to hunt and cause conflicts?
Not usually. We're usually trying to put them adjacent to existing WMAs, and either in holdings or those that border existing WMAs. Occasionally, we'll get a small one. A lot of times it's donated. We still make a call whether we'll accept it. And the small one, like the turtle bog, it is part of a larger portion that's owned by the Nature Conservancy that they're eventually gonna transfer to us within the next few years. So that's why we got involved in that one, for example. There's not a lot of disjunct little tracks that we're buying actively right now.
My second question is, selling land, if we had a piece of property that we deemed we didn't want anymore, is that process basically the same as going back to the building commission and justifying why we need to get rid of it?
Just be aware that if we're allowed to surplus it, sell it, the agency won't get the money. It goes to the state general fund, and that's statutory.
Even if we paid for it out of the wetlands fund?
I understand.
Do we ever turn down pieces of property?
A lot. Yeah.
We can trade property, I suppose. We don't have to sell it. We can exchange it with. So that makes more sense for us than to sell it and give up the money.
If we can get something that's good for us and is additive to what we have, I suppose so.
The problem.
Now, there's costs associated with that. If you're doing, we'll have to appraise and survey, well, at least we'll have to appraise both parts, and we'll have to survey the new one. So, we can get some money usually out of the person that wants to do the land swap with us, but we have costs associated with it that would come, like if it was a wetland tract, that would come out of the wetland fund.
Any more questions on the commission for Tim? Anyone in the audience? Thank you, sir. This time I'd ask Ken Tarkington, Chief Administrative Services, come give us a financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be reporting on the month of October. And again, there should be a 2-page report in your book. At the top of the page, the boating fund through the month of October is a little less than 3% less than the same point in time the year before. The expenses to year to date have approximate about 23% of the annual allotment. In the middle of the page, the wildlife fund, approximately 3.8% ahead of the projection for this year. And on the expense side, we're just under 23% of the annual allotment. At the bottom of the page, the Watchable Wildlife Endowment, we have $4,700 available for those projects until interest is posted by Finance Administration. And at the very bottom, the Lifetime Sportsman Fund, or the endowment, has approximately $38.1 million as a balance. On the top of the second page, the Wetlands Acquisition Fund has $14,746,000. And as usual, we have zeroed the maintenance fund out in the middle of the page, and the compensation, which is the in lieu of tax fund, has $424,000. Any questions or comments?
Any questions from the commission? One in the audience? All right, thanks, sir. Yes, sir. I want to apologize to Chuck Yost and Don King for rolling y'all to January. Normally at the December meeting, we usually don't have proclamations and things that are debated on for 2 or 3 hours. So I do apologize that Bobby Wilson took 3 hours of the meeting this morning with Fisheries and Chairman McMillan. But I do apologize, and also to you, Commissioner Stroud. I rolled you too, so I apologize. Now you know how Harold Cannon feels every now and then. Is there any other business come before the commission today? Okay, Ed, do you have any final comments?
No.
Anybody on the commission have any final comments? All right, our next commission meeting will be a 2-day meeting. It will be January the 15th and 16th. That's a Thursday, Friday. It will be in Union City, Tennessee, at the Discovery Park of America. It's where we will be. Is that not correct, January? January 15th, 16th?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I was correct.
She's been asleep over there for an hour.
Well. No.
No.
For the record, the next meeting is January the 15th and 16th. That's a Thursday, Friday in Union City, Tennessee, and the meeting will be held at the Discovery Park of America. And look forward to all of you being there. So, and I agree with the other commissioners, want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and hope you have a happy and safe holiday season. We are adjourned.